They ordered the alien child to be left behind, but the human officer refused to comply. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. Captain Ethan Cole stood at the edge of the evacuation zone, his uniform already soaked with sweat and stained with the distinctive purple mud of Proxima Centauri b. The distant rumble of the approaching storm front sent vibrations through his combat boots. "Captain, we have 97 confirmed evacuees secured in the transport vessels," Lieutenant Megan Brooks reported, her voice barely audible over the howling winds. "That's all registered personnel accounted for." Ethan nodded grimly, scanning the makeshift research outpost that had been their home for the past 8 months. What had started as an exciting xenobiological research mission had turned into a nightmare when their long-range sensors detected the approaching ionospheric storm, a weather phenomenon unique to this planet that could strip the flesh from bones in minutes. Atmospheric degradation at 62% and accelerating, the synthetic voice of their AI coordinator announced through their comm units. Estimated time to lethal exposure, 17 minutes. "You heard Aiden." Ethan barked at the remaining squad members. "Final sweep, and then we move out. Leave no one behind." The irony wasn't lost on him. 8 months ago, the United Earth government had established this outpost with grand promises of peaceful scientific research. The reality had been different. They were essentially an advanced military reconnaissance team disguised as researchers, evaluating the strategic potential of humanity's closest exoplanet neighbor. Ethan had been selected to lead the mission because of his reputation. He followed orders, kept his team alive, and asked no uncomfortable questions. Until today, the winds increased in intensity as he made his final inspection of the central research hub, confirming all sensitive data had been properly wiped. As he turned to leave, a faint sound caught his attention, something distinct from the storm's growing howl. It came again, a high-pitched, trilling sound that seemed to vibrate through his chest rather than his ears. "Aiden, scan for life forms in the main structure," Ethan commanded, his hand instinctively moving to the pulse pistol at his hip. Scanning complete. No registered personnel detected within scanning range. The AI responded with mechanical precision. The sound came again, more insistent. Ethan frowned. "Expand parameters. Scan for any biological signatures, not just human." There was a brief pause. "Alert. Unregistered biological entity detected in Laboratory Section C. Classification, unknown." Ethan's pulse quickened. Laboratory C had been off-limits to most of the team. Only the senior researchers with direct connections to UEG military intelligence had access. Whatever they were working on in there was beyond his security clearance. "Captain," Brooks' voice crackled through his comm, storm front accelerating. "We need to evacuate now." "Acknowledged. Go ahead and begin launch sequence." "I'm doing a final check," Ethan replied, already moving toward the restricted lab. The door to Lab C was sealed with a biometric lock. Ethan didn't hesitate. He fired his pulse pistol at the control panel. The lock sparked and died, and the door slid open with a hiss of decompression. Inside, the lab was in disarray, evidence of a hasty evacuation. Specimen containers were emptied, equipment partially disassembled. But the trilling sound was louder now, coming from behind a heavy storage cabinet. Ethan moved the cabinet aside and found himself staring at what appeared to be a small containment pod. The transparent front revealed what was unmistakably a child, but not a human one. The creature was small, perhaps the size of a 5-year-old human, but with iridescent blue-green skin that seemed to pulse with bioluminescence. Its head was slightly elongated, with 4 dark, expressive eyes that blinked up at him in what he could only interpret as fear. Instead of hair, delicate frond-like appendages crowned its head, rippling as if in a gentle breeze despite the still air of the lab. "What the hell?" Ethan whispered, as the realization hit him. This was a native Proximan, the first confirmation that the planet hosted intelligent life. The very discovery they had officially been sent to find, but one that would complicate Earth's plans for colonization. The creature trilled again, pressing a six-fingered hand against the containment glass. The sound resonated with something deep in Ethan's chest. His comm unit crackled. Captain Cole, the stern voice of Colonel Whitaker, the mission's military intelligence overseer, cut through the static. Our sensors show you're in Lab C. That area is restricted. Leave immediately and proceed to evacuation. Ethan stared at the containment pod. Sir, there's a child here. Some kind of native species. A long pause. That's classified research material, Captain. Not your concern. It's a child, Ethan repeated, his voice hardening. We can't leave it here to die in the storm. That specimen is UEG property, Captain. The containment pod is designed to withstand the storm. A recovery team will collect it once conditions stabilize. Ethan watched as the child, because despite its alien features, he could see the intelligence and fear in those eyes, trembled inside its prison. And if the pod fails? Then we've lost one research subject, Whitaker replied coldly. The diplomatic complications of acknowledging sentient native life on Proxima B outweigh the scientific value of one specimen. Those are your orders, Captain. Leave it and evacuate immediately. The comm went silent. Ethan stood frozen, staring at the alien child. His entire career had been built on following orders without question. 16 years of exemplary service to the UEG, carrying out missions that sometimes pushed ethical boundaries, but always in service to humanity's expansion among the stars. The creature trilled again, a sound so filled with distress that it needed no translation. Captain, Brooks' voice cut through his thoughts. Atmospheric degradation at 78%. We have less than 10 minutes before the shuttle shields won't be able to protect us. Ethan made his decision. With a swift motion, he activated the emergency release on the containment pod. The front panel slid open with a hiss. The child cowered back, its fronds flattening against its skull in what Ethan interpreted as fear. It's okay, he said softly, knowing the creature couldn't understand his words, but hoping his tone might convey his intent. I'm not going to hurt you. He reached into the pod slowly. The child flinched, but didn't retreat further. Its skin felt smooth and cool to the touch, with a slight electric tingle like static electricity. I've got you, Ethan murmured, carefully lifting the surprisingly light body from the containment pod. The child went rigid at first, then gradually relaxed, wrapping two thin arms around Ethan's neck. The fronds on its head extended, gently brushing against Ethan's face in what felt like a curious exploration. Captain Cole. Whitaker's voice thundered through the comm. Our sensors show the containment pod has been opened. What the hell do you think you're doing? Ethan didn't respond. Already running through the corridor toward the landing pad, the alien child secured against his chest. The winds outside had reached near hurricane force, purple-tinged storm clouds boiling overhead as the deadly ionospheric disturbance approached. The last transport shuttle waited on the pad, engines rumbling, ready for immediate takeoff. Lieutenant Brooks stood at the ramp, her expression changing from relief to shock as she saw what, or who, Ethan was carrying. Captain, what is, she began. No time. Ethan cut her off, racing up the ramp. Get us airborne now. Brooks hesitated only a moment before her training took over. Yes, sir, she responded, sealing the ramp behind them and rushing to the cockpit. The small shuttle shuddered as Ethan strapped himself into one of the acceleration couches, carefully securing the alien child beside him. Around them, the remaining members of his team stared in disbelief at the unexpected passenger. Captain, Dr. Sarah Morgan, the team's xenobiologist, approached cautiously. Is that what I think it is? Later, Doctor. Ethan replied as the shuttle engines roared to full power. Everyone, secure for emergency ascent. The shuttle lurched violently as it broke free from the planet's surface, fighting against the storm's powerful updrafts. Through the viewport, Ethan could see the purple-black clouds engulfing their abandoned outpost, the corrosive atmospheric elements already beginning to dissolve the outer structures. Captain Cole. Colonel Whitaker's voice came through the shuttle's comm system, each word clipped with barely controlled fury. You have directly disobeyed a direct order, and stolen classified UEG property. This is an act of treason. The alien child trilled softly beside him, the sound somehow conveying both fear and gratitude. One of its six-fingered hands found Ethan's and gripped it tightly. "With all due respect, Colonel," Ethan replied, staring at the small being whose life he had just saved, and whose existence would change everything humanity thought they knew about their nearest stellar neighbor. "This isn't property. This is a child." The silence that followed was more telling than any threat Whitaker could have made. Ethan knew his career was over. Best case, he'd face court-martial and dishonorable discharge. Worst case, treason charges and life imprisonment. The UEG didn't look kindly on those who exposed their secrets. But as the shuttle broke through the upper atmosphere, leaving the deadly storm behind, Ethan couldn't bring himself to regret his decision. Some lines couldn't be crossed, even in service to humanity's future among the stars. "What now, Captain?" Brooks asked quietly from the cockpit doorway, her eyes on the alien child who was now watching the receding planet through the viewport with all four of its eyes wide in apparent wonder. "Now we make for the Athena," Ethan said, referring to the research vessel in orbit that would take them back to Earth. "And I face the consequences." "And the child?" Dr. Morgan asked, already visibly itching to examine their unexpected passenger. Ethan considered this. "First, we make sure it's healthy and feels safe. It's been through enough trauma." He looked at the xenobiologist with steel in his eyes. "This isn't a research subject anymore, Doctor. As far as I'm concerned, this child is under my protection." Morgan nodded slowly. "Understood, Captain." As the shuttle climbed higher, leaving Proxima Centauri B behind, the alien child turned its four-eyed gaze to Ethan. It made a new sound, not the distressed trilling from before, but a melodic series of notes that somehow conveyed curiosity and what Ethan could only interpret as hope. Without understanding why, Ethan found himself humming back, a simple tune his mother had sung to him as a child. The alien's fronds rippled in what might have been pleasure, and for the first time since Ethan had discovered it, the child's mouth curved in what was unmistakably a smile. It was in that moment that Ethan truly understood the magnitude of what he had done. This wasn't just about saving one life or defying unjust orders. This was first contact with an intelligent species, not through official diplomatic channels or carefully orchestrated scientific protocols, but through a simple act of compassion that transcended species boundaries. Whatever came next, there would be no going back. The journey to the research vessel Athena was tense but uneventful. The alien child remained close to Ethan, showing signs of distress whenever he moved too far away. Dr. Morgan conducted some basic non-invasive scans, confirming that the child's biology, while obviously different from human physiology, showed remarkable similarities in basic organ structure and function. "It's almost as if we're looking at convergent evolution taken to an extreme," she explained as the shuttle docked with the larger ship. "Different evolutionary paths arriving at similar solutions." Ethan nodded, only half listening as he prepared for the confrontation that would inevitably come once they boarded the Athena. The alien child, sensing his tension, trilled softly and placed a six-fingered hand on his arm in what seemed like a gesture of comfort. "What do you think they were doing with it in that lab?" Lieutenant Brooks asked quietly, watching the interaction with fascination. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Nothing good," he replied. "The UEG wouldn't have ordered us to leave a sentient being behind unless acknowledging its existence was problematic for their plans." The docking procedure completed with a metallic clunk and hiss of pressure equalization. Ethan stood, and the alien child immediately raised its arms in the universal gesture of wanting to be picked up. Without hesitation, Ethan complied, feeling the light weight settle against his chest. "Here we go," he murmured, as much to himself as to the child. "Stay close to me." As expected, they were met by a full security detail as soon as the airlock opened. Captain Lauren Bennett, the Athena's commanding officer, stood at the front, her expression unreadable. "Captain Cole," she said formally, "Colonel Whitaker has informed me of the situation. I've been ordered to place you under arrest and secure the unauthorized cargo you brought aboard. Ethan shifted, subtly positioning himself to shield the alien child from view. With respect, Captain Bennett, this is not cargo. This is a child, the first confirmed intelligent native life form on Proxima Centauri b. Bennett's eyes widened slightly as she got her first clear look at the alien in Ethan's arms. The security team behind her murmured in surprise. The existence of intelligent life on Proxima b is classified at the highest levels, Bennett replied, though Ethan could see the conflict in her eyes. My orders are to secure the specimen and place it in quarantine until we return to Earth. The child stays with me, Ethan stated firmly. It's traumatized and responds negatively to separation. I'm willing to accept confinement, but the child remains in my custody. Bennett studied him for a long moment, clearly weighing her orders against the unexpected reality confronting her. Finally, she sighed. You and the child will be confined to guest quarters under guard. Dr. Kelsey from our medical team will conduct a full examination to ensure there are no biohazard concerns. She raised a hand as Ethan began to protest. Non-invasive procedures only, Captain. I'm not a monster. Thank you, Ethan said, genuinely grateful for this small concession. As they were escorted through the Athena's corridors, crew members stopped to stare at the unusual procession, a decorated UEG captain under guard, carrying what was clearly an alien child. The child itself seemed fascinated by the new environment, its head swiveling to take in the sleek interior of the human vessel with all four eyes blinking in patterns that suggested intense interest. Their assigned quarters were Spartan but comfortable, a small suite originally designed for visiting dignitaries, now converted to a secure holding area. As soon as the door closed behind them, Ethan set the child down carefully, watching as it explored the space with cautious curiosity. What have I done? He whispered to himself, the full weight of his actions finally settling on his shoulders. The alien child, as if sensing his distress, approached and trilled softly, reaching up to touch his face with cool, smooth fingers. The gesture was so innately comforting that Ethan found himself smiling despite everything. I guess we're in this together now, he told the child, knowing it couldn't understand his words, but hoping it might sense his resolve. And I don't even know your name. The child tilted its head, fronds rippling, and made a complex series of trilling notes that seemed almost like a response. Ethan blinked in surprise. Can you understand me? The child repeated the melodic sequence, then pointed to itself. Is that your name? Ethan asked, astonished. The child trilled affirmatively, or at least it seemed so to Ethan. He attempted to reproduce the sound, failing miserably. The child made a noise that sounded remarkably like laughter, then simplified the sequence to 3 distinct notes. That's your name. Ethan tried again, managing a crude approximation of the sound. The child trilled happily, its skin pulsing with brighter bioluminescence that Ethan was beginning to associate with positive emotions. I'll call you Melody, Ethan decided, the name fitting the musical nature of the child's communication. At least until I can properly pronounce your real name. Melody, as the child was now known to Ethan, seemed pleased with this, making the laughing sound again and dancing in a small circle, fronds waving like kelp in an ocean current. Their moment of connection was interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Amanda Kelsey, the Athena's chief medical officer. She entered cautiously, her eyes immediately drawn to Melody. Remarkable, she breathed, setting down her medical kit. Absolutely remarkable. This is Melody, Ethan said, watching as the child retreated to half-hide behind his legs, suddenly shy. I'd appreciate if you'd approach slowly. Melody has been through a lot. Dr. Kelsey nodded, visibly switching from scientific excitement to a more gentle, professional demeanor. Of course. She knelt down to be at eye level with the child. Hello, Melody. I'm just going to make sure you're healthy, okay? To Ethan's surprise, Melody trilled a response and stepped slightly forward, though keeping one 6-fingered hand firmly grasped on Ethan's pant leg. The examination proceeded slowly and carefully, with Dr. Kelsey explaining each step to both Ethan and Melody before proceeding. The child displayed remarkable patience. only showing distress when a blood sample was required. And even then, recovering quickly when Ethan hummed the same lullaby that had seemed to comfort Melody earlier. Preliminary results show no pathogens or bacteria that would pose a threat to humans, Dr. Kelsey announced after completing her tests. Physiologically, Melody's species seems to have developed in an environment similar enough to Earth that there's significant biochemical compatibility. She smiled at the child, who was now sitting contentedly in Ethan's lap. In fact, the similarities are astonishing: carbon-based, comparable amino acid structures, even cellular respiration that's not too dissimilar from our own. What about communication? Ethan asked. Melody seems to understand simple concepts, but I'm not sure how much. Dr. Kelsey considered this. The neurological scans show highly developed language centers. I'd hypothesize that Melody's species communicates primarily through those melodic vocalizations, possibly supplemented by the movement of those cranial appendages. She gestured to the fronds that were currently waving gently above Melody's head. With time and the right linguistic programs, meaningful communication should be possible. After Dr. Kelsey left, promising to return with appropriate food for their guest, Ethan sat on the edge of the bed, watching as Melody explored the room more thoroughly, examining objects with careful curiosity. His comm unit beeped, a secure channel notification. Bracing himself, Ethan accepted the connection. Captain Cole. Colonel Whitaker's face appeared on the small screen, his expression thunderous. You have committed an act of treason against the United Earth government. Your actions have compromised years of careful planning and research. With respect, sir, Ethan replied calmly. I believe the UEG's plans were compromised the moment they decided to conceal the existence of intelligent life on Proxima Centauri b. This child, that specimen, Whitaker interrupted, is the property of the UEG Military Intelligence Division. It was collected as part of Operation Forerunner, a classified initiative to study the native species of Proxima b before proceeding with full colonization efforts. Ethan felt cold anger wash through him. You knew. The entire time we were there, conducting our scientific research, you knew there was intelligent life on the planet. Of course we knew, Whitaker snapped. The specimen you've stolen is the offspring of one of the tribal groups we've been monitoring. Its genetic material is vital to understanding how to effectively manage the native population during the colonization phase. Manage? Ethan repeated, his voice dangerous. You mean subjugate or eliminate? Whitaker's silence was damning. You're talking about sentient beings, Colonel. This isn't just an ethical boundary you're crossing. It's a crime against an entire species. Spare me your moral outrage, Captain, Whitaker replied coldly. Earth needs room to expand, resources to exploit. Proxima Centauri b is perfect, close enough for efficient travel, environmentally suitable with minimal terraforming. The native population is pre-industrial, scattered in small tribal groups. They pose no significant resistance to our plans. Except for the fact that they exist at all, Ethan said quietly. Because acknowledging intelligent native life would trigger the Sentient Species Protection Act, wouldn't it? No colonization, no resource extraction, only regulated scientific and cultural exchange. Melody returned to Ethan's side, sensing his distress and trilling softly. One six-fingered hand reached up to touch his face in what was unmistakably a gesture of comfort. Whitaker's eyes narrowed as he observed the interaction. You see? The specimen has already begun bonding with you. Their species appears to form quick emotional attachments, a trait we were studying for potential exploitation. Ethan placed a protective hand on Melody's shoulder. This ends now, Colonel. When we reach Earth, I'm taking Melody directly to the Sentient Rights Commission. They'll ensure proper protocols are followed for first contact, legitimate first contact. You won't make it to Earth, Captain, Whitaker said, his voice suddenly calm in a way that sent warning signals through Ethan's mind. At least, not with that specimen. I've instructed Captain Bennett to reclaim it using whatever means necessary. His lips curved in a cold smile. You've had an exemplary career, Cole. Don't throw it away for an alien. Stand down, Return the specimen to authorized personnel, and I might be able to reduce the charges against you to simple insubordination. Not going to happen, Ethan replied. Melody stays with me. Whitaker's expression hardened. Then you leave me no choice. Effective immediately, you are stripped of rank and authority. Consider yourself under military arrest for treason, theft of classified materials, and violation of direct orders during a critical mission. He leaned closer to the screen. And understand this, Cole, that specimen will be recovered, with or without your cooperation. The communication ended abruptly. Ethan sat motionless, processing the threat. Beside him, Melody trilled questioningly, head tilted in apparent concern. It's okay, Ethan assured the child, though he knew things were far from okay. I won't let them take you. But how to prevent it was another question entirely. They were on a military vessel under Whitaker's command, surrounded by crew loyal to the UEG. Even if some might sympathize with his position, few would risk their careers or face treason charges to help him. A soft knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Lieutenant Brooks stood there, flanked by two security officers whose hands rested pointedly on their sidearms. Captain, she said formally, though her eyes conveyed a different message. I've been instructed to escort you to the brig. The specimen will be transferred to a secure laboratory facility. Ethan stood slowly, positioning himself between Melody and the door. You know this isn't right, Brooks. Something flickered in her expression. I have my orders, sir. And I had mine, Ethan replied quietly. To leave Melody to die on that planet. Some orders shouldn't be followed. Brooks glanced at the security officers, then back to Ethan. 3 minutes, Captain, she said softly. Get your affairs in order. She stepped back, allowing the door to close. Ethan immediately understood what she was offering. A small window of opportunity, though for what, he wasn't sure. Sir, a new voice spoke from the room's comm system. Ethan recognized it as Dr. Kelsey. If you can hear me, I've temporarily looped the security feed in your quarters. They won't see or hear what you're doing for the next 3 minutes. Ethan's mind raced. Doctor, what's happening? Some of us don't agree with Colonel Whitaker's orders, she replied quickly. What they were doing to that child and its people, it's wrong. Lieutenant Brooks has arranged a diversion. There's an emergency evacuation shuttle in Bay 3. I've programmed the autopilot for a rendezvous with the Galileo Science Station in the Kuiper Belt. It's nominally independent from UEG military oversight. Hope flared in Ethan's chest. Why are you helping us? There was a brief pause. Because I became a doctor to heal, not to participate in the subjugation of an entire species, Kelsey answered simply. 2 minutes left, Captain. The maintenance shaft behind the environmental control panel will take you directly to Deck C. Brooks will ensure Bay 3 is clear. Thank you, Ethan said fervently, already moving to the panel she'd indicated. Both of you. Just get that child to safety, Kelsey replied. And Captain, what you're doing, it matters. More than you know. Ethan pried open the panel, revealing the narrow maintenance shaft beyond. He turned to Melody, who was watching with obvious apprehension. We need to go, he said, extending his hand. Do you trust me? Melody looked at his hand, then at his face, for dark eyes blinking in sequence. After a moment's hesitation, the child placed a 6-fingered hand in his and trilled what sounded like affirmation. That's my brave Melody. Ethan smiled, lifting the child into his arms. Hold on tight. We're getting out of here. With that, he entered the shaft, the panel sliding closed behind them just as the door to their quarters opened to reveal Colonel Whitaker himself, flanked by a full security team. But Ethan and Melody were already gone, crawling through the maintenance system of the Athena, making their desperate bid for freedom, and perhaps for justice for an entire civilization that humanity had been prepared to sacrifice in the name of expansion. What awaited them at the Galileo Science Station, and whether they would even make it that far, Ethan couldn't know. But of one thing he was certain, he had made the right choice. Some lines couldn't be crossed, not even for humanity's future among the stars. As they made their way through the narrow passages of the ship's maintenance system, Ethan could only hope that enough of his fellow humans would agree. The Athena's maintenance shafts were a cramped labyrinth never meant for human transit. For Ethan, the journey was an exercise in discomfort, but Melody seemed perfectly at home in the confined space, sometimes wiggling ahead to scout the path, fronds rippling with excitement. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" Ethan whispered as they paused at a junction, listening for signs of pursuit. The ship's alarms had activated minutes into their escape, filling the corridors with pulsing red light. Melody trilled softly in response, the bioluminescent patterns on the child's skin providing just enough light to navigate the darkness. Colonel Whitaker's voice echoed through the ship's announcement system. "Attention, all personnel. Former Captain Ethan Cole has committed treason against the United Earth government. He has stolen classified research material and is attempting to flee. The specimen is potentially dangerous and must be secured. Lethal force is authorized if necessary." Ethan clenched his jaw. "Dangerous? That's a new lie." He looked at Melody, who watched him with concern in all four eyes. "Don't worry. We're almost there." They reached a vertical shaft that would take them to Deck C, where the emergency shuttles were housed. Ethan had Melody climb onto his back, the child's six-fingered hands clasping across his chest, creating a subtle tingling sensation like a mild electric current. They descended carefully, freezing when they heard security personnel above them. Melody's bioluminescence dimmed to near invisibility, an adaptive response that struck Ethan as remarkably useful for a creature that had evolved on a world of predators. They reached the access panel that would open onto a storage room adjacent to the shuttle bay. The storage room was dark and empty. Lieutenant Brooks' voice came through Ethan's comm unit. "Bay 3 is clear for now. Security teams are concentrated on decks A and B. You have maybe 5 minutes. Shuttle 5 is prepped." "Ready?" Ethan asked, looking down at Melody. The alien child trilled softly and gave what was unmistakably a nod, a human gesture it must have learned from observing him. They were halfway to Shuttle 5 when the main doors opened. Ethan pulled Melody behind a refueling station as a security team entered. "Check all the shuttles," ordered a stern-faced officer. "Focus on 5. Intelligence suggests that's their target." Melody tugged at Ethan's sleeve, pointing toward a secondary access corridor that led to the ship's external maintenance airlocks, then at the EVA suits stored nearby. "The maintenance tethers? We could reach the shuttle from outside." It was extremely dangerous, but with security closing in, they had few options. "Can you breathe in vacuum?" Ethan asked, mimicking breathing difficulties. Melody made a gesture that seemed to indicate a limited duration, holding up 4 fingers. "For minutes? You can survive vacuum for 4 minutes." The alien child nodded emphatically. They entered the small airlock chamber. Ethan secured a tether line to his suit and another to Melody's midsection, then hit the release. Air rushed from the chamber as the exterior door opened. Melody's fronds flattened against the child's skull, but the alien didn't panic, maintaining a tight grip on Ethan's suit as they were exposed to the vacuum of space. Ethan moved carefully along the exterior hull of the Athena. The distance to Shuttle 5 seemed immense. If Melody had been correct about the 4-minute limit, they had precious little time. They reached the shuttle and entered through the emergency access panel. The shuttle's interior pressurized automatically. Ethan turned to find Melody motionless on the deck, skin pale and fronds limp. "No, no, no," Ethan muttered, kneeling beside the small form. He placed his hands on what he assumed was the child's chest, applying gentle pressure, mimicking CPR techniques. Suddenly, Melody's body convulsed. The child's 4 eyes snapped open, and a gasping trill filled the cabin as the alien lungs reinflated. Color flooded back into the iridescent skin. "Thank God," Ethan breathed, gathering the child into a careful embrace. He moved to the cockpit and initiated the launch sequence. The shuttle broke free just as alarms began blaring throughout the bay. Security personnel rushed in with weapons drawn, but it was too late. The shuttle hit the bay's energy barrier at full speed, breaking through as the field collapsed behind them in a cascade of blue-white sparks. A warning light flashed. The Athena was preparing to pursue. We'll reach the Kuiper Belt in approximately 73 hours, Ethan explained to Melody. The Galileo station can provide sanctuary while we figure out our next steps. The alien child placed a six-fingered hand over Ethan's human one in a gesture of trust and reassurance. We'll figure it out together, he promised. The next 3 days passed in a strange combination of tension and discovery. Ethan remained vigilant for signs of pursuit while he and Melody established rudimentary communication, building a shared vocabulary of gestures, trills, and simple words. Through their evolving communication system, Ethan pieced together fragments of Melody's story. The child had been taken from a settlement near one of Proxima Centauri B's equatorial forests, separated from family during a frightening encounter with human researchers. The laboratory had been Melody's home for several months, subjected to tests that the child clearly found distressing to recall. "I'm sorry," Ethan said after one particularly difficult attempt at communication. "What my people did to you was wrong." Melody studied him, then made a gesture that clearly differentiated Ethan from the researchers. A simple movement that conveyed forgiveness and understanding beyond the child's apparent years. As they approached the Kuiper Belt, Ethan received a transmission from the Galileo Science Station. "Galileo Station, this is former Captain Ethan Cole of the UEG Exploratory Forces. I am seeking emergency sanctuary under Article 7 of the Sentient Rights Charter. I have with me a juvenile member of the indigenous population of Proxima Centauri B, rescued from unauthorized research protocols." The reply came after a long pause. "Understood, Captain Cole. We've received intelligence regarding your situation from sympathetic parties aboard the Athena. Proceed to Docking Bay 4. Dr. Nathan Brooks, the station's director, met them as the airlock opened. "Captain Cole, and this must be your young companion. Welcome to Galileo Station." Melody partially hid behind Ethan's legs, clearly intimidated. Ethan placed a reassuring hand on the child's shoulder. "This is Melody," he said simply, "and we've come a long way to find justice." The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind of debriefings and meetings with scientific and ethical oversight committees. Dr. Brooks proved to be a genuine ally, outraged by the revelations about Operation Forerunner and the UEG's plans for Proxima Centauri B. With the help of advanced linguistic programs, Melody's communication skills improved rapidly. "My people called Garda," Melody explained during one session, "live in forest homes. Many tribes, but one people. And the humans who came to your world?" Dr. Sarah Morgan asked gently. She had defected from the Athena, unwilling to continue supporting an unethical mission. Watched from hiding places. Then came to villages at night. Took children, elders. Some never returned. 3 weeks after their arrival, a UEG military cruiser appeared. The Hyperion, Colonel Whitaker's flagship, demanding they surrender Ethan and Melody immediately. "What about going public?" Ethan suggested. "Broadcast everything we know. Show Melody to the world." Before Dr. Brooks could respond, alarms blared. The Hyperion had launched shuttles attempting to dock at multiple points. "We need to move Melody immediately," Ethan said. "Is there another shuttle ready?" Brooks nodded. "Bay 7 has our long-range research vessel, the Copernicus." While the station's security forces delayed the boarding parties, Dr. Morgan escorted Melody to the communications center where they recorded a direct message from the alien child to the people of Earth. "My name Melody," the child began, her dark eyes blinking solemnly at the camera. "I speak for Garda people of home world you call Proxima Centauri B. We live in peace until humans came. Took children, took elders. Study us like animals. We not animals. We people, like you. Have families. Have songs. Have stories." The child's six-fingered hand touched the screen. "Human Ethan saved me. Other humans wanted to leave me die. But Ethan showed true heart of humans can be good." The message was broadcast to every major news network on Earth, along with evidence about Operation Forerunner. They made their way toward Bay 7 but encountered a UEG military squad. Lieutenant Brooks stepped forward, then quietly informed Ethan that the broadcast had reached Earth and was causing uproar. Public opinion was turning against the UEG's plans. Whitaker has ordered the Hyperion to prevent any vessels from leaving, Brooks warned. Even if you reach the Copernicus, you'll be shot down. Then we need a diversion, Ethan said. Brooks arranged for the station's tracking systems to be temporarily disabled during a maintenance inspection, giving them a window to escape. Dr. Morgan met them at the Copernicus. The journey will take approximately 7 months at maximum sustainable speed. You're not coming with us? Ethan asked, surprised. Morgan shook her head. My place is here, making sure the truth about Melody's people can't be buried again. The Copernicus detached from the station as alarms indicated the Hyperion had detected them. But as Brooks had promised, the tracking systems went offline, creating a brief window of sensor blindness. Ethan seized the opportunity, pushing the vessel to maximum acceleration, using the Kuiper Belt's dense field of icy bodies as cover. The 7-month journey to Proxima Centauri became a period of profound discovery. Melody's command of human language improved dramatically, while Ethan made similar progress with the Garda language. My father is Wisdom Keeper, Melody explained one day. Remembers history of all tribes. Tells stories so we never forget where we come from. Through these conversations, Ethan pieced together a picture of a complex society with rich traditions and sophisticated ecological knowledge. The Garda lived in harmony with their environment. Their technology focused on sustainable cultivation rather than industrial development. As they approached Proxima Centauri, Ethan began receiving transmissions from Earth, news reports regarding what was now called the Proxima Revelation. Public outcry had forced the UEG to acknowledge the existence of the Garda. The Sentient Rights Commission had launched a full investigation into Operation Forerunner, with several high-ranking officials, including Colonel Whitaker, facing charges for ethical violations. Will you be punished when returned to Earth? Melody asked with concern. Ethan smiled ruefully. Probably. What I did is still considered treason, even if more people now understand why I did it. Then stay with Garda, Melody suggested simply. Be welcome as friend who saved child of tribe. Finally, after 7 months of travel, they reached Proxima Centauri b. Ethan scanned the surface, finding the UEG research outpost abandoned. The public backlash must have forced them to withdraw, he said with relief. With Melody's guidance, they identified the region where the child's tribe lived, a forest valley near one of the planet's equatorial river systems. The Copernicus descended, landing in a clearing near the largest settlement. Melody bounded down the ramp, fronds fully extended and rippling joyfully, bioluminescent patterns pulsing in brilliant waves of happiness. Almost immediately, trilling calls echoed from the forest edge. Adult Garda emerged, approaching with caution. Melody called out in their musical language, the sounds carrying emotional resonance that transcended the need for translation. One of the Garda rushed forward, an adult with elaborate patterns of bioluminescence similar to Melody's. The child launched into the adult's arms in a reunion filled with emotion. My father, Melody explained between trills of joy, turning to gesture at Ethan. This human saved me, brought me home when others wanted to leave me behind. Melody's father approached, extending both 6-fingered hands in a gesture of profound respect and gratitude. He welcomes you, Melody translated. Says you have returned the heart of his heart, and the tribe's future wisdom keeper. The reunion celebration lasted well into the night, with haunting Garda music filling the air and elaborate bioluminescent displays transforming the settlement into a living artwork of light and color. Others were taken too, Melody explained soberly during a quiet moment. From many tribes, some still not returned. I promise we'll find them if we can, Ethan vowed. And I'll make sure your people's rights are protected. 6 months later, the sensors detected multiple ships entering the system. A diplomatic delegation from Earth, led by representatives from the newly established Interspecies Relations Commission. They're here to establish formal relations with the Garda, Dr. Morgan explained via comlink, and to offer reparations for the actions of Operation Forerunner. Your evidence and Melody's testimony changed everything, Ethan. The colonization plans have been completely abandoned. Captain Megan Brooks, formerly lieutenant, was among the delegation. All charges against you have been dropped, she informed Ethan. Your rank and honors have been reinstated. We had to list you as presumed lost in space to clear the political path. Ethan glanced at Melody and the Garda community that had welcomed him. I think my place is here for now. There's still much work to be done. That evening, during a quieter celebration, Melody's father performed a ceremony formally adopting Ethan into the tribe, an honor never before bestowed upon an outsider. You are now Garda, Melody translated, her 4 eyes shining with happiness. My father gives you Garda name that means one who refuses wrong path. Will stay? The child asked simply. Ethan looked up at the unfamiliar stars, then back to the community that had embraced him despite every reason for mistrust. Yes, he said with certainty. I'll stay. In the years that followed, Ethan became a respected figure among both the Garda and human diplomatic circles, helping to establish the first truly equal interspecies cultural exchange in human history. Melody grew into a wisdom keeper like her father, preserving the story of their unlikely friendship. And on both Earth and Proxima Centauri b, children learned the story of the human officer who refused to leave an alien child behind, a simple act of decency that changed the relationship between two worlds forever. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also, leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.